So get this, podcast listeners, we have a very special story about how the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, is that what it stands for?
Ah, yes, with the $1,200 checks and things.
So you get a $1,200 check and it's kind of lands in your account or it's mailed to you.
Yes.
Right? That's how it works. And that was part of the stimulus to make sure that you had money to buy the basics like food and shelter and clothing.
$1,200 up front and then $600 extra a week.
$1,200 is for most people not going to be enough to pay for their rent and their food and so forth.
No.
So at least they have some money to pay for food and other things. But here's the thing. When you give out mass checks like this,
some people fall through the cracks.
There's massive fraud. And I have a very personal story about this, the Payroll Protection Program. I have an update on it. So my wife just received a check in the mail. My wife did. And it was for $1,200. And on the check, and I just want you guys to look at the check. Maybe you can put the check above my finger here. It's like, here we go. So here's the check. Look at this check. It is for $1,200. And it was to my wife. And it says to Miriam Bugach, which is my wife's mother, care of her representative, which is my wife's name. And then it had after my wife's mother's name, Miriam Bugach, in caps, DECD, if I'm correct, which means deceased. But it had 5 or 6 spaces after my wife's mother's last name, meaning that it was pretty obvious that the DECD wasn't another name, it was meant deceased in the computer system. Well, my mother-in-law passed away in April of 2019. That's last April, not April of 2020, but April of 2019. So a little bit over a year ago.
Means she probably would have filed her 18 tax return, right?
So no, actually she hadn't filed yet.
Okay, interesting.
But that misses the point that we're making here. It says that she's deceased.
Yeah, on the check. Even.
IRS, I mean, American Treasury, I mean, Mnuchin, I mean, I'm just saying, you sent a $1,200 check to my wife, who's her representative.
Who knows what she could have done with it?
And you even put on the check that she was dead. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
How many other dead people have received checks and their family members received them, put them in the bank? I just want everybody to know out there, my wife is not depositing the check. She called, our accountant, and the accountant says, look, this is happening a lot. Obviously, don't deposit the check. We'll have to figure out who to send the check back to because, I'm sure there's probably not even a place you can send the check to where someone can go,
who are they going to take the check?
Oh, wow, look at this check. They sent it back. I'm going to give them extra credit. Of course, that's not how the government works.
No, they want their money and they want it now.
I want my money and I want it now. But I just thought, folks out there in podcast land, here's a great thing to learn from this experience. Government was never set up and was never supposed to be
these ginormous undertakings.
Exactly. Government was not supposed to be doing all of this. I'm not saying that we don't need government to help prop up the economy and help people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's massive fraud. And
there's lots of ways it can go wrong and be abused.
And here's a great example, right? How many people actually received checks
that were deceased got a check? That's one example of countless ones that through my job I've seen. Small business owners, truly small business owners, somebody who owns a plumbing company in his town of 1,000 people and he's got 3 employees and he needs a loan to keep the place open.
He needs real money.
He can't get it.
And the thing is I just can't reiterate this enough. And maybe you can put this up one more time, the check, because I have my finger right there, put it right above my finger. It says DECD. She's not here. She's deceased. Dead. And yet you and your computer system still sent the check out? What the heck?
It's simple. It could have run just a little bit of code and said, scan for deceased and then delete, but,
Exactly. But apparently the IRS is really good, at least it was during the Obama administration, of making sure that nonprofits that were conservative organizations didn't get their nonprofit status. Denying them nonprofit status through the federal code. But they're really bad at apparently sending checks out. I'm not really sure what's happening there.
I am so amazed that they even were searching for people who were deceased and saw that they were deceased and said, let's put it on the check.
Let's inject the money into the economy anyway, because someone's going to get it and spend it.
They probably were like, guys, if we send it to all the deceased people, we can say we sent 34 million checks as opposed to 32 and 34. So it's so much better. Something stupid like that. I bet you there's some weirdly stupid rationale behind it and why it happened.
But yeah, kudos to my mother-in-law because I'm sure she's looking down on us right now and laughing really hard, saying the government is stupid because she had a thick French accent because she was born and raised in Switzerland. So anyway, my wife will appreciate that when she listens to the podcast.